So call the meeting to order. Our first order of business today is actually, we've got a guest speaker, Himani, if that's pronounced Kumar, who's done trying to say I'll let Himani talk about it, but she'd like to talk a little bit about the program that she did for a week at UConn. Himani, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect. Okay. I'm trying to find the actual title here. I'm used to having 3 screens and my little laptop doesn't do it justice. But I'll let you take it away, Himani, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about the program that you attended and kind of some of the ideas that you came up with.
Yeah, sure. So first I want to give like a really big thanks for letting me for giving me time to speak here and for inviting me. And like you said earlier, my name is Himani Kumar, and I actually live in Farmington, and I go to school at FHS, and I'm a 10th grader there. So the program that I worked with over the summer was the Conservation Ambassador Program from the NRCA, which is the National Resource Conservation Academy at UConn. I also have my difference maker mentor here with me, Leah, and she helped me out through the summer and is going to be helping me in the project. And I joined this program, like the NRCA program, because I was passionate about being a leader within my community, as I had a lot of background experience with being a leader and both in and out of school. I'm also really devoted about the environment, and I really wanted to do all I could to preserve it, which is why it interests me to join this program. And also, as a part of the NRCA program during the summer, I participated in a week-long field experience on campus to learn more about the environment hands-on and learn skills that I could use during my project. So this project that I'll have to work on is an environmental action program within my community. And I have some topics or ideas that I want to pursue, and I hope I'll be able to collaborate with you all on my ongoing project for my community. And I just wanted to reach out to ask if you guys can support me as a community partner, as like I said earlier, I live in Farmington, so it'd be easier for me, and I wanted to help my community. I'm just going to describe vaguely about the project idea I was planning. So I was thinking about implementing some way for residents of Farmington to have access to a way to compost their organic waste, because something I did in the past was with FLL, and our team actually had a composting idea that we brought to the town, but that was 3 years ago. So I'm planning on branching off from that and using that as a starting point. And something that we created a while ago that I was planning on using in this project is we could create a way for communities to have access to compost, or give them compostable bags from which the town can pick them up and make a central composting system. And those are just some kind of general ideas I was thinking about related to the topic of composting that I had. And I think I want to start out pretty informal. So this is all I had prepared for today. And I just wanted to say another thanks for giving me this opportunity and time as community partners. And I look forward to working with you all.
Okay, thank you, Himani. I don't know if any of the panelists or committee members have any questions for Himani at this point. Okay, so I wanted to thank you for coming on today, and I think having the conversation going forward, and you maybe attending some of these meetings, they are monthly, may add some valuable input. So we appreciate you coming tonight, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. We do have an ongoing discussion with composting and other items, so we implore you to stay on for tonight, and please join us in the future if you can.
But Johnny, this is Kate Grady Benson. I thought there was going to be a presentation, so that's why I didn't ask any questions. But I guess my question would be, at this project at UConn, have they developed a community-based composting program there? Is that up and running?
So I think like this kind of project is just related to the environment in general. So like I specifically chose to do composting.
Mhm.
And from what I know, I think there's have been like some other students in the past who have also chose to do composting, but not like it's not like from UConn, but it's like in their communities with like UConn as like a partner.
I see. Are you thinking about a program at the high school? Composting in the cafeteria as a project?
Yeah, that could be like one specific project, but I was kind of looking for like more composting like in general. So like I can kind of work out like the details about more specifically what I want to like focus the project on.
I see. Okay.
Mhm.
Great, thank you.
I know, Leah, you unmuted for a second there. Did you want to chime in?
Oh, actually, Hamani had put it perfectly. It's usually lists the students and the community partners that create the program, but there have been past projects within the 10 years which NRCA has been running, where students have done composting environment as part of their environmental action project.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions for Hamani or Leah?
Johnny, this is Patty. I do have a question, Hamani. Not many of the folks on the committee were members of the committee when you guys came to speak to us a few years ago. We've had quite a bit of turnover since then. And when First Lego League, when you came as part of First Lego League, you were talking about creating like a centralized composting system in your neighborhood. Are you looking to branch out beyond that at this point and more community-wide and less focused on that type of pilot project?
Yeah, so for the FLL project, actually like 3 years ago, it was more like it was kind of tailored to what like FLL was kind of expecting of us at that time. So they kind of told us that we had to do something like related to robotics and something like waste management in your communities. So that's why like that's kind of how like the project kind of started from there with the centralized composting systems. And like if I look back at like kind of like the previous stuff that we had, it was like more kind of like a whole like system that was in the communities. And I feel like that wasn't like as realistic because like it was 3 years ago. So like I was kind of like in 7th and 8th grade. So it wasn't like as realistic since it was supposed to be just a prototype. But for like this project, I was thinking of doing something like more manageable that can be done like within 3 or 4 months time just to have like at least a starting base. So yeah.
Okay, so you were working within the constraints that you had for First Lego League the last time you guys came to speak to us, and now individually you're looking for something that would be more implementable on a short-term scale. Is that
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to add, at the end of the 3 to 4 months period, data will be collected, and there's going to be a presentation that pretty much each participant, high school student who have participated in the NRCA CAP program, they will be presenting like basically everything that all the research that they've conducted at the Connecticut Science Center. There'll be a convention, and that's when they'll be able to talk about it. And yeah, basically also include everything that they've done with you as community partners in their project.
great? Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you again. All right, moving on, we're gonna be, let's see, public comment. If there's any public on, Garrett, I don't think there is.
I do not see anyone, no.
We don't have any presentations tonight. Let's see, administrative. So has everybody had a chance to read the minutes from and I said September 6th on the way in here, didn't I? I was reading the minutes instead of the agenda. So I want to, all right. So the September 6th minutes, has everybody had a chance to read them? If so, can I get a motion to approve?
I move to approve the September 6th meeting minutes.
Is there a second?
I can second.
Okay, any discussion?
I have a question on the native lawns where it says native lawn not currently permitted. Have we gotten, is it possible to change that to it appears it's not currently permitted? I'm assuming we haven't gotten attorney opinion on that it's not actually permitted. And this is my legal brain coming out, so.
It's up to the committee. It's more of, I wrote it that way because we have a ordinance that says that if it grows more than a foot, you have to cut it. So,
Right, when
and
we,
it's,
yeah, I understand that's the reason. I'd like to add appears to
Fine.
that it appears instead of it's not, because I think there's some gray area.
that's fine. I'll
Thank you.
so it'll say native lawn, which appears to currently not be permitted by town ordinance.
Everybody good with that? Okay, any other discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 All right, opposed? All right, hearing none. Moving on to item F, anti-idling. I know, well, Sam's not here, but Kate?
Tim's on,
Yeah.
and Kate is
Sam
on.
Oh,
Perfect, so which one of you guys wants to jump in?
well, I have a little update today because I met with Tara Vasquez over at Westwoods. I had been given the posters this summer by Ashley Batista. She did the photographs of the posters so that I could get them created into signs. And I was trying to get the quote, and Tara said for me to hold off because she hasn't passed the signs or the posters by Kathy Greeter yet. So the break is on, and she is going to reach out to her to show her the posters. They're all, yeah, I mean, they were made by children, and we all, some of us on the committee went and voted on them. She did have them tweak them a little bit just to make them a little bit more professional looking, but still with the child, you know, the childlike look. So until I hear back from her, I guess it's on hold. I said, listen, you know, it would be nice to have this move forward before the ground gets hard, because you know, we need to put the posts in the ground. And also the kids, you know, I mean, it would be nice to recognize the kids at like an all school assembly, you know, as just, you know, maybe a 2-minute thing added to their assembly. And a couple of us from Green Efforts could come over and thank them or whatever. But so hopefully she can, you know, move this along a little bit quicker. I know there's been a lot of change at the school this year and things are a little upside down. So, you know, it may go slower than we really want it to, but she's still very interested in the project and also in furthering it this year in different ways. She said there's a really big problem with people idling over at Westwoods. So they're very interested in doing more. And I suggest to her, you know, listen, we do have the capability of putting an article, you know, that maybe you get the students to write on our website, you know, and getting information out in different ways. So, you know, we can help you in whatever way is possible to make this work. So that's the most up-to-date news, at least from the poster side of it. Sam, I don't know what else you know on your end.
About the student signs, I don't know anything more than that, but actually I didn't even know that. But as far as the DEP signs that were issued, they are distributed to the schools, and if they're not all installed at this point, they will be by the time we have the next meeting anyway.
Okay. So Kay, is that the only hurdle that's left for the posters, is just Kathy's blessing?
Yeah, we need to get Kathy's blessing before they get produced. You know, I'm not
Okay.
going to have the printer. I've got a printer lined up, and you know, I don't want them to make them until we know that these are okay. So
And-
This
and-
is Patty. I think on my hunch is that on the Board of Ed agenda is that there'll be a Green Efforts update for our next meeting. If that's the case, I'll make sure it's mentioned if we don't have approval yet.
oh, that'd be great.
Okay, and then how long before they, how long does it take to get the posters produced? Do you know that?
You know, I wish I could tell you that. I don't think it's going to be too long because I've been talking to this guy for a couple of months, and he just basically needs to cut the steel to make them. I mean, he was good to go really actually last week and thought he could get them done in like 2 weeks. So I'm thinking if she can turn this around this week, you know, if she can get approval, or say, if I hope not a disapproval, then we can, you know, get these in by the end of the month.
Okay. And Patty, you mentioned at the Board of Ed, but we don't need a Board of Ed approval. We just need Kathy's blessing, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
I just do a monthly update on green efforts. So if it hasn't made it, I can just flag it as another thing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a Board of Ed approval.
And I should see her tomorrow
Okay.
at a high school working group meeting. So I'll mention it to her then
Great.
as well. So we'll get that done.
Great.
Okay, anything else on anti-idling? All right, thank you.
No.
Okay, thank you. Next one is discussion on black plastics. I know last meeting, we mentioned quickly that, you know, black plastics are no longer allowed in recycling, and Patty, you had mentioned it kind of goes in, it goes out. Garrett, if you want to talk, I know that we spoke a little bit today about the newsletter and how it was, you know, posted to go out less than a week after our last meeting. But I'd like to just discuss a little bit more what we want to do to get that message out. And Garrett, if you want to take it away, and a
Yep.
couple of things we spoke about.
So Stacy brought it up before the last meeting, so we added to the agenda to discuss about doing a public education about that black plastics were no longer being accepted for recycling. I know it comes and goes depending on the recycling processor who's taking the refuse. And I think it was within like a week, the deadline for the newsletter happened of our last meeting. So we weren't able to get anything for the fall newsletter. However, there's always another newsletter. So if we want to get something written up for the winter newsletter, and in the meantime, we can post something on the town website as well to put out some information, kind of an informational, just FYI, black plastics are currently not being accepted by Connecticut recyclers. So I don't know if someone wants to give their opinion.
I mean, I think it's fine. We just have to get the message correct. Maybe pass it out ahead of time just so we have it. And then sorry, I have like, my wife is not here. My 5 kids are in the background, so I missed a little bit of that. The website, posting on the website, did you mention that?
Yes. Stacy, did you ever hear back from Cheryl Baldwin?
I didn't, and I did not follow up, so.
Okay, I can send her an email.
Okay, thanks, sorry.
No, I'm going through that. I'm looking at old emails right now, and I see that we emailed her and never heard back. So I'll send her an email about a press release.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anything else? All right, perfect. Moving on to the next item, G1, simple recycling update. Do we have any new numbers?
Yes, I do. So I don't think I had a lot of updates over the summer. So June was 2,400 pounds. July was 1,794 pounds. August, we had 1,476 pounds. It was too close to the end of September, our meeting, to get the numbers for September, but so far for this year, we're at 8.9 tons of textiles recycled. And I think that brings us almost to 60 tons since the program started in December of 2019
Wow.
of textiles.
Yay.
I have a quick question as a relative newcomer. I'm not super familiar with this. Do you mind doing like a quick, I don't know, 30-second?
Yeah, so this
Overview.
is a program that was included as part of residential trash pickup starting in 2019. I think it's a pink plastic bag.
Not anymore.
No, it's not pink anymore.
Nope. So the process, there's a company called Simple Recycling, and they take textiles for recycling. So it takes it out of the trash stream. The contract with the town, I don't know what the current contract is. The original concept, at least, was that the town would get pennies on the pound in terms of how much Simple Recycling picked up. It used to be done by a pink trash bag on trash day. Now, instead, what you can do is go to the Simple Recycling website, and you can schedule a pickup, and you can put out any textiles, usable or not. I think the only request is that they not be contaminated with hazardous materials. So if you've used them to clean up a spill, they don't want them. But otherwise they can be stained, ripped, torn, shredded, in any material, and they sort them. Things that are usable and good quality, it'll go to a secondhand store for resale. Things that are usable, that are usable but maybe wouldn't be saleable in the United States, might be sent overseas for sale elsewhere. And items that aren't usable get shredded, so they can then be used can be repurposed. Anything from like the stuffing of, padded envelopes to whatever else, shredded textiles. And they also accept, so I've put everything in from towels, old lace curtains that were ugly. And they also take like small household appliances, which I don't know how that fits into the textile thing, but they accept them. So it's nice for things that aren't working to just have a place to put it and keep it out of the trash. So
Very cool.
They also take shoes too.
yes.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks for the overview. I didn't even know that was around. That's cool.
Garrett, one question I have is on this report, is it any chance that you could add the columns for 19 and 20? And
Even better.
21, just so that we could kind of, oh, there you go.
So you've got 19 here. The first year was 55,800 pounds. That was from December 2019 to November 2020. There was a COVID pause in April, and then they started up again. And actually, there was a lot in those first few months after the COVID pause, and then it continued. We've got from December 2020 to December 2021 here. I don't know why that's not. There we go.
Yeah, just the only reason I asked is so we could track to see, and obviously when a program first comes out, you get some buzz about it. People have a bunch of stuff, and just to see, just kind of year over year, if we're tracking even or down, and if we should be doing any extra. Because just like Talia, I'm new to this, and I didn't even know this existed. I know we've been talking about it a little bit, but I'm trying to get all caught up here. So thank you for that as well.
We should probably do another article that goes out or something, and then talks about our success, right? How much we've kept out of the waste stream, and we could touch on the fact that we're trying to reduce our tipping costs. I don't know.
I was just going to say the same thing, that maybe either winter or even spring. Winter, people are thinking about spring cleaning and things like that.
Yeah.
Might be a good time to just include the reminder and say, you just go to this website and request a pickup, and they'll come to your house and pick up textiles and things like that.
Good idea. I like that. Okay. Anything else on Simple Recycling? All right, moving on to composting. Like Sam or Kate?
That was another thing that I updated today. Tara put it on hold because of we were talking about it back in the spring, and she was given notice that all the teachers were going to be expected to change their classrooms this fall. So she didn't want to start a trial over at Westwoods until things settled down a bit. And she was probably wise in doing that, because I think there's I think there's a lot happening right now over at Westwoods, at least. So in talking to her today, she said she's still interested. I did hear that Blue Earth has expanded. Sam, the owner, has gotten a recent accommodation for how successful they are, and they're producing quite a bit of energy off of the compost. And so they've they've got a larger space now, which is great. So I told her I would reach out to them again and see if they could send somebody over to talk to kind of the people that would really be involved. She said there's a teacher she wants this to be run by the 5th grade. And she said there's a teacher in 5th grade whose name I can't remember right now, who is all about outdoor education and all things that, are environmentally concerned. So she thought she might get him involved, as well as the head of maintenance over there. She said who's excellent. And then sadly, their vice principal has left to go over to IAR, I guess, to replace someone. And she would have been the other person. So she's going to try and figure that out. But so I'm going to try and see if we can get somebody from Blue Earth to go over and kind of walk through just how easy it is. And frankly, whether it's easy. She also said there's a new head of the cafeteria over there who's really interested in doing kind of innovative things. So that's heartening. And so that's where that is, at least for Westwoods at this point.
Okay, thank you, Kate. Any questions for Kate?
Just Kate, if you need anything from the Board of Ed side, let me know.
Oh, great. Thanks, Patty.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Next is discussion on the littering signs. This we brought up last month. Talia was talking about, I think, Town Farm Road. And we had some discussion. Sorry, excuse me. Wanted to continue the discussion, and I know Garrett, you spoke to Public Works Director about putting up signs, not an issue, but I know Patty, you mentioned sometimes it has the reverse effect. So I wanted to discuss a little bit more and just see if this is something we want to do, and see if we can't come to a decision tonight. So Garrett, you spoke to Russ Arnold, right?
Yeah, so he said it was just a question of enforcement. So I did dig into our town ordinances, and we do have a section about littering. It's a violation on any open space property, right of way, school grounds, or town property. So if it's on Town Farm Road, that's right of way, so that would be considered littering. And there is a fine for that right down here. It's not a big fine. It's not less than 50 nor more than 100, and/or community service not more than 20 hours per offense. Again, it's the police officers have to be there to witness it in order for there to be enforcement against it. So that's kind of where, so if we want the signs, he's got no problem with us putting up. We just would have to decide if we want them and where we want to put them. And if you give me 1 second, I can pull up the GIS to show Town Farm Road.
So what is
Garrett, do you know if anyone, if like the folks at the, that would issue the fines, are they, so I'll tell you, the state would treat per offense as being like, if you were to throw 50 items outside your window to litter, that would be 50 offenses. So that would be 100 times 50. Yeah, I assume you didn't get into any of the granular detail on what that scope of fine is.
No, and it just says any person violating any of the above provisions shall be fined not less than 50 or more than 100.
Okay.
And again, that's the police officer have to see it happen
Right.
in order to issue a violation. I don't know how often they're driving up and down Town Farm Road, if that's the area of concern. So,
yeah.
So I know we talked about in this area, kind of near the clubhouse for Tunxus and up near the polo grounds, I believe.
Right past it. Yeah, it should be right past it, because where all the trash is past the polo grounds.
It's past the, okay, because as I said, I was out by the polo grounds last week and it didn't seem like there was that much.
No, it's right there. See where 158 is?
Right on the, yeah, so this is a house.
If you go north of that, yeah.
On the
north,
town-owned property.
all the way up to the Avon Town line is really where
Okay.
it is.
Yeah, it's between the between the Polo Grounds and the Sub-Edge Farm, even on the Sub-Edge Farm roadway.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's all town property. So aside from this house that we own, so that it is all town property
Okay.
on both sides of the road.
Well, I mean, if we did the signs, could they be something that's not your typical, don't litter? I mean, something that's like brings attention. I don't know. I'd love to see a really crazy sign that goes up. I don't know how crazy you can get, but I mean, just like that really draws attention to it. Like,
Yeah,
what? Are you kidding? You threw that out? You idiot? No, I'm not.
Yeah, I would think if we're going to do signs, they have to be something like that. I mean, my generation, at least, we grew up, there's signs saying do not litter. I mean, I think folks know they're not supposed to. So I don't know that a sign prevents it unless folks recognize that the consequences beyond so the actual consequences to the environment or animals as opposed to a monetary fine, because I don't think that's going to persuade anyone not to litter, frankly. So
Yeah, it could be something that, that speaks to the wildlife around there.
right.
You're killing us, said the bear. I don't know.
Right.
It just, I agree.
Just trying to-
Man,
Do
it's-
those people
it's-
care? I mean,
I know.
I mean, in whose budget, I guess, whose budget are these? If it's coming out of ours, we should think seriously about if that's how we want to spend our committee dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my sentiment's the same, and whether it's committee or even town dollars, it's what are we gonna get out of it? I mean, I know I've grown up seeing those signs everywhere, and some of the state ones are much higher amounts than that. And they're faded and they're old and they blend in the background like the million other signs that are out there like that.
Yeah.
Here's Hillstead
And-
Museum.
Oh, wow.
And it's just unfortunately, it's like just past my house, there's town open space behind me, and that's where all the little liquor bottles go and all the trash goes, and the kids and I spend once a month or twice a month going up there and picking it up. So I'm not sure the sign is going to help. I know the conversation last time around was more around education or sponsoring a cleanup of a road, kind of like they do on some throughways where they, this section of highway is sponsored by this, in favor of, and some kind of, pro, non-littering sign, something like that, tying it to a little bit more personal, where maybe it is a business in town, maybe it's a family in town. That says, this family is sponsoring to clean up this road, please don't litter. Something like that, I think would have a lot more effect than just, $50 or.
I agree.
Yeah. And I could use, the analogy of when I have one of my kids straighten something up, they get a lot more annoyed if someone makes it messy. So, I think the idea, Johnny, of having a company or an individual being responsible for it, it also adds a personal consequence, it creates some sort of personal connection of an actual person is trying to, it has to clean this up. I mean, it's not going to sway everyone, but might have some impact.
Oh, those carriers are doing a pretty good job on Town Farm Road.
So I don't know if just going to Public Works at this point, I think maybe this is the beginning of a little bit broader discussion. I know, maybe there's 5 trouble spots in town that are really the high areas, and maybe we start with that, maybe it gets expanded, more like a little pilot program, maybe Town Farm is one of those. And I think that, we all set out to find one person that would, sponsor at least the price of the sign, and take ownership of getting out there and cleaning it up once in a while, I think would have far reaching. And then once we get a couple of those in there to put it in the newsletter, I think that would draw a lot more attention to that. So I'd be more for keeping this on the agenda and furthering some kind of, pilot like that.
I'd be happy to give you the 5 spots.
What's that?
I said, I'd be happy to give you the 5 spots. I've been cleaning them up for the past 22 years, so.
All right, and I mean, maybe Garrett, we'll just work on a quick outline, and then present that at the next meeting, because we could go in circles with the ideas, but let's get something on paper. We'll present it to the committee, and then we can tweak it and see, what we can kind of grow from there. Is everybody okay with that?
Great.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. And yeah, if there's gonna be any like more discussion on that separately from this meeting, like I'd be happy to be part of that as well. Like, I don't know, I just had a bunch of ideas that I'd be happy to talk about more. One of them being like, would it make any sense to go to any of the local businesses that commonly, like, there's a lot of Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's and alcohol bottles out there as garbage. Like, would any McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts, or liquor store make sense to be one of the sponsor signs out there, like to encourage people like, oh, maybe I shouldn't throw their garbage out there because then they're going to have to go pick it up. But you know what I mean? Like psychologically, would that help
Yeah,
prevent it? I don't know.
I love
I'm
that.
sorry
No,
if I'm not, but
I mean, I think that's great. I know if my business
Great
name is
idea.
there, I'm gonna make sure it's clean. Cause I don't want to see a littering sign with my name on it and then see all the litter next to the sign. So
yeah,
you're definitely gonna get some buy-in, but Talia, if you wanna, get together with Garrett and, we can chat for a little bit offline from this meeting and try to get something together that I think we can
Okay.
pitch to the rest of the committee. That'd be great.
I like it.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
just so you know, this was looked into a few years back. We were looking to adopt a highway or adopt a road. So maybe there's something in the records, Garrett. We did explore, some of the roads are state roads, like Route 6 is a state road. So we couldn't put any signs on that. So there are roads we can't do because, they're not town roads, and they tend to be the dirtier ones, sadly. 6 is a mess, but yeah, so just to think about that as well.
Yeah, and so if it was a few years back, it would predate my time on the committee because I haven't done it. So if Garrett is going to look back in the minutes, he needs to go back at least 5 years.
That's when you came on?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, time
Mhm.
having fun.
Yeah, I came on in January 2017.
Okay, any other final thoughts? All right, thank you. Moving on to item 1 under other EV charger, Garrett.
Yes, so give me a second to just look at my calendar real quick. I'm trying to remember when I had meetings. Chemistry group. Yes, I believe it was after. So I had a meeting right before our last meeting with an EV charger company. I met again with them a couple weeks after our last meeting with their electrician out by the Staples house. So at this point, I'm just waiting on a quote from them for the installation cost. So there's a let me see if I can. So there's we decided that we're going to pull power off of a telephone pole along Route 4. Here we go. So there's a telephone pole right here. Staples house is over here. Pole is right about there. So we'll pull off the existing telephone pole. We'll install a new electrical cabinet here with capacity for additional chargers in the future. So right now the grant just covers the cost of one charger with 2 ports. But the setup will have enough capacity that we can add additional chargers in the future. And so we'll just put a charger right here and hoping for springtime for installation of that. I don't think it'll happen at this point before the ground freezes, especially because we've been digging up the front lawn on Route 4. I don't think anyone wants to be looking at dirt all winter, especially our public works director and town manager. So, so that's the plan that we have right now. And like I said, just waiting on, I think they might just be waiting on hearing back from Eversource for the cost for the new service. But we would do our own digging to save costs. And just quick refresher, there's a grant from Eversource that covers up to $20,000 of the installation and make ready cost and 50% of the charger. And the town has to cover the remaining installation cost and the other 50% of the charger for a public charger. So that's the plan, and that's where we stand right now.
Garrett, so if I was to bring my car over there, is the charge free, or do we have to have the access to the different charging apps? How is it going to work?
I need to get some clarification on that. Originally, I thought we could charge for it, but they said it had to be free. It was public. I'm not quite sure. I have to get some more information from them. The one that we were looking at would use the ChargePoint network. There's an app.
Yep.
There's an app for that. That you can put your payment information into, and then there's a wait list and for the app. So if there's 2 cars at the charger, you can put your name in at the wait list. One person that's currently charging, when their vehicle is fully charged, look at a notification. Hey, it's time to move your vehicle. They move it, and then you'll get notifications available. You can pull your car in and charge your car. So I have to double check on that, because it was my understanding that we could charge with the goal of that we would offset the money to buy additional chargers in the future. But again, I have to double check.
Great, excellent.
Oh, and Garrett, we spoke, I know you came from Plainville, where you guys had one of these installed quite a bit ago.
Yeah, so that was an old grant program. I actually reached out to Plainville months ago, and it was an old grant program that they installed it. And the problem with the free chargers is that it's great for town residents. However, it does get taken advantage of. When I worked in Plainville, the dealerships were doing their plug-in hybrids and their electric vehicles there to charge for free because they didn't have a charger installed at the dealership. So after everyone did all their test drives, they would just bring it to town hall and charge it for free, which can be troublesome. I don't know if it would be as big a problem in Farmington, just because it's not like there's car dealerships on Route 4, they're all on Route 6. We did have someone come to one of our meetings a few months ago that mentioned that she had purchased an electric vehicle from Nissan, and Nissan has chargers at their site. Additionally, I think there was other businesses in town that were looking to install some electric vehicle chargers in the near future as well. I think Stop and Shop might have been looking at it a few months ago for information gathering purposes. So free charging is nice, but there are potential downsides of people abusing it. So that's just something to keep in mind, especially if you can get the Wi-Fi from the library, then you just sit in your car all day with air conditioning and work from your car.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the charges aren't a lot. It's not that. It's more, when your charge is done and someone doesn't move their car and then someone can get in. It's more
Correct.
having that capacity to maybe charge for anything on and above. But I kind of like the idea of small charges going through, the future, because, maybe the town hall isn't convenient for everyone. Maybe this is something that expands to different parts of the town instead of putting them all in one spot.
Correct.
Because, it's just Farmington High at this point doesn't have the greatest accessibility besides the Highlands, because there's lack of sidewalks from the town hall all the way up to, Wooden Tap and that kind of thing. So, or the old
Correct.
Wooden Tap. All right, perfect. Any other questions for Garrett?
Can I just ask, is the high school, the new project, including a charging station up at the parking lot?
Right now, no, there's nothing on the new high school.
Can it be?
Thank
I don't remember the number, but I know we're working with Eversource on that, and they are actually planning on having a couple of charging spots there. I'm not sure the layout of it. I can find out more and report back at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you, Sam, for correcting me. I don't ever remember in the hundreds of hours we spent in those building committee meetings and the work groups. I don't think that ever came up.
No, it wasn't. It was one. I don't know if you remember. We had Eversource comes on, and then through the state, there's a program that runs through Eversource, and the commissioning. I can't remember what they call it, but the ultra commissioning that they're doing. There's a program where they're working on getting those in there.
Okay.
Yeah, when I had a meeting with the installation contractor, he recommended, even if the high school wasn't thinking about installing chargers now, just putting in a conduit. And that way it's there in the future. But if Sam's already working on it, that's good.
Perfect. Okay, any last questions on that? All right, thank you. Moving on to the last subject of today, the native lawns. So Garrett had forwarded the, the ordinance that we have on vegetation. And then he also forwarded the one that Stanford had. I don't know if everybody had a chance to read it. There's a lot of the similarities between the two. I don't know, my own thoughts is that Stanford's is pretty robust, but it had a little bit more of a, I don't know, burdensome approach to it with landscape architects and, registrations and things like that. So I don't know what the committee's feeling is on it. I'd like to hear some more your thoughts. I think it's a little heavy-handed, and I think it needs to be somewhere in between. But I'd like to hear from the rest of the committee.
Yeah, my concern is, and my thoughts are, a lot of the towns in Fairfield area, Stamford, have very, very robust, very stringent requirements. And from having had to do some environmental cleanups in Stamford, I can tell you that there's one of the more onerous towns to deal with when it comes to getting approvals for landscaping and other types of issues. So I probably wouldn't want to use Stamford's as a model. They also have a full, I think they have a department that works on this type of stuff, and Farmington certainly doesn't have that type of staff and support, unless Garrett's looking.
You're looking at it.
Yeah.
So the reason I grabbed Stanford's was after our meeting, I started doing some research into if towns had adopted any ordinances for meadow lawn exemptions.
Mhm.
Stanford was the first one that came up because they did it, I think, in March of this year. So it's not as common yet. I did look at the planner's email chain. There was nothing in there discussed recently. So I had found that Stanford had done it recently. I just pulled their ordinance as part of research, and that's the only one I've been able to find so far. And it was just including it as, see, another town has done this. Granted, it is Stanford in Fairfield County,
Mhm.
which is a whole different animal, but it's a starting point
Yeah.
for adopting the local ordinance.
Yeah, what I like about theirs, I think what's important for thinking about is invasive plants and noxious weed. I don't know. I haven't looked at the definition, so I don't know how they're defining noxious weeds. But I don't think that people should be able to get away with saying it's a native, it's a pollinator garden, and then have something like bittersweet or garlic mustard or any other one of those plants that are just going to spread like wildfire and create problems. From my own experience, I think whatever we do, we should try to keep it, I don't want to say vague, but something that allows for enforcement discretion, to make it so that the town has the ability to enforce something, but it doesn't create a lot of added burden, because we don't have the staff that a lot of other towns do.
Correct. So the way I would see this working is that there would be a registration form. So currently, at least from planning and zoning, if you're installing a fence, installing a shed under 200 square feet, or looking to have 6 or less chickens, there's just a registration form that you file with our office. I would phrase it differently with an ordinance. I'd say I specify it as a registration form with the Public Works Department. That would therefore go to the director, who would then delegate it down to someone that works for him. That would be me, just for those purposes. And that it would be that you have to file a form or a letter or something stating that you're intending to do this. The reason for that is that when I issue a letter for someone having an unmowed lawn, I have to send them a copy of the ordinance that says, this is what you're in violation of. This is what can happen if you don't obey this enforcement order. And if we do this, now I'm including this. So I just don't want to run into someone calling me up and saying, no, it's a native lawn. I'm done. I don't have to cut it. So having some sort of standard, more than likely see envisioning that we have something that you have to mow maybe at least the 2 or 3 feet along the property lines and the curb line. So that way it's not, you're not getting 2 foot tall grasses that just flop over into your neighbor's yard or flop over into the road. A standard like that, because the right of way can be 3 to 10 feet. Theoretically, if we had an issue, we could just go with the flail mower and mow that 10 feet. If someone was not cooperating or there was a big, big bush growing into the road. So just
how would we go about educating people that they have to fill out this form? I ask because, for example, the town has an ordinance about no bird feeders between April 1 and October 31st. And I can tell you, there are a lot of bird feeders that have been up all summer long. So I also don't want to run into a situation where someone says it's a native plant, a native or a pollinator garden. I prefer pollinator to native, but because poison ivy is native too. So a pollinator, I don't want someone to come up and say, well, I'm doing a pollinator garden. No one told me I had this registration form. I didn't file it before.
Right. So it would, depend on the phrasing of the ordinance. So another example, we adopted a zoning regulation recently that it used to be that if you wanted any amount of chickens from 0 to 20, you needed a public hearing with Planning and Zoning Commission. It was a whole 6-week process. There was like a $210 application fee. You had to mail everyone within 200 feet. What we would normally require for, it's called a special permit. We created a new regulation this year that says if you have 6 or less hens, ducks, any form of poultry, here's a registration form, fill it out and give it back to our office. When I get a complaint from a neighbor saying, oh, then my neighbor has chickens, I don't know if they're allowed, I send them a letter saying, you may be in violation. We do allow, if you have 6 or less chickens, fill out the enclosed form and send it back to me. If you have 6 or more, please contact me to discuss the next steps in order to apply for a special permit. Again, including something like that as part of our policy, where if we do, it's not just a neighbor complained about the lawn, we immediately send a letter. We go out and inspect. If it appears to be manicured and it'd be a determination on the enforcement officer, myself in this case, if it appears to be maintained, it's not just ryegrass, that it's not just clearly unmowed, which is usually pretty obvious, or if there's something in there that gives the indication that it looks like they're trying to establish a pollinator lawn, then I would send a letter saying, you may be in violation of this. If you're intending to establish a pollinator or meadow lawn, fill out this form and send it back to me. If not, please mow your lawn within X amount of days. And it could be that it could be more than just saying, yes, I want a meadow lawn. It's, yes, I planted something. We're not doing it tonight. We're not, rewriting the ordinance tonight.
Right,
but
obviously,
something to consider when we start writing it out and writing it down for any proposal.
Logistics.
I mean, I don't want to see the heavy-handedness. I do think that this registration thing's not a bad idea. Regardless, if we make any changes to this, we've got to go, to council and have the ordinance changed. But I do think that we should work on an outline and see what that looks like, and then maybe use a little bit of the definitions that we see from Stanford, maybe that. And then the other thing is maybe within that registration form, I know chickens is, you got 1, you got 2, you got 3, it's pretty easy to count, but maybe with this registration, it's, a short description of what you're trying to do or what types of grasses or things you're trying to grow. So at least there's an effort there that, it's not just, hey, this is what I'm doing. I send my name in, I sign at the bottom, I understand, and then you move on and 2 months later you're in the same spot. So some sort of again, I hate to use plan because I don't want to go down this whole need a professional thing. But just something, if someone's putting that kind of time in to actually grow it, they're going to have researched it. They're going to have, even if, just to write down simply what they're trying to do.
So I don't know that someone's going to necessarily have a plan even of their self, because some of this is really just allowing native plants to take over. So
But
it would
that
that
is a
be,
plan.
so all right, so
that's
that's
my
what I was gonna
point,
ask.
like-
Would that be considered
Yeah.
a plan? And so I mean, these are all types of things that we'd have to tweak and work out. It's what I like about the current ordinance, although I understand the issues, is that it is very broad. So it allows for it allows for flexibility and enforcement.
Right.
But I
so-
also understand the corollary to that it's how do you manage it?
Right. So the kind of what started all this is I had sent a letter to someone asking them what I want, and he complied, and then he called me saying that he was trying to establish a native lawn, and that in the next year he'd be planting native wildflower seeds in the lawn and things like that, because it was, from a planning perspective, front lawns are ornamental. There's no real need or benefit.
Nope.
Everyone has their own opinions. Some planners have said that, and I took planning classes in college, and that's what I'm conveying to you.
Yeah, they're aesthetic.
Right.
yeah.
And this particular homeowner had almost no backyard. I think he only met the 40-foot rear setback, and he's on Birdseye Road, and he's set maybe 100 feet back from the road. There's no real need to have an ornamental green lawn. If you're that far back at that point, you're trying to insulate yourself from Birdseye, because it's a double yellow. There's more traffic on it than most local roads. That was just the specific instance.
Right.
He didn't see the need to maintain this front lawn. I mean, on it obviously, if you live in Devonwood, we don't. I don't think I
Yeah,
ever get a
HOA.
call. Right. I don't.
Yeah.
If there's an HOA, it doesn't involve us. I almost never get calls about developments with HOAs because the HOA takes care of it.
Yeah.
It's the single family residential zones, sometimes businesses. Those areas are who we end up getting calls about.
Yeah, I think what I'd like to see with the change ordinance is trying to put on a program or something that educates people, because really, I understand the concepts behind no mow May, I think is when it is. But the problem with that is a lot of lawns are filled with non-native invasive things. So when you let them grow, it becomes, it's not beneficial to anyone involved. And in some cases, you might end up spreading stuff that you don't want to spread. So I think having some sort of education about the benefits of pollinator gardens, how to go about it, what types of plants. And I think that also might take care of some of the neighbors who are looking over their fences and what are they doing over there?
So maybe something that we could coordinate is finding someone to discuss native lawns, and we have it coincide with the effective date of the new ordinance. Maybe something along those lines of, say, here's the revised ordinance, here's some information either at the library or the senior center, either or, just kind of informational of, hey, if you're interested in having a native lawn, here's the information you would need. And in terms of the town, here's the form you have to fill out.
Kate, the woman from Nature Works, does she charge a speaker fee, or did she just?
Yeah, it was only $450 though.
Okay.
There are a lot of people that can talk to this.
Yes.
I know Farmington River Watershed has a lot of great speaking points around this. So I don't think we'd have a problem getting, in fact, I think we should offer it several times, not just once.
Yes.
And I think this is a great idea. Whoever brought it up, thank you. There are a lot of cities throughout the country that are doing this. couple that come to mind, Ann Arbor, Michigan. I don't know if you've ever walked around on the streets there, but wow, it's so beautiful. Seattle, gorgeous. So it's something to work towards, because a grass lawn doesn't make any sense, reality.
The question I would have then is, you know, the education piece and then this ordinance and enforcement piece are two different things. And are we maybe putting the cart before the horse and even looking at this point before it starts to catch on? Meaning like, you know, it's kind of broad-based now. There's, I guess, a little bit of enforcement. I don't know, Garrett, are you seeing a widespread issue? Or is there any need to go there at this point with the actual ordinance change? Because that doesn't deter us from doing any of the education piece.
Correct. So we don't get that many complaints about overgrown lawns in accordance with the property maintenance code the town has. It's more of, I think, so I spoke to Shannon about this. Shannon spoke to the town manager about this. And she said there has been times where we have, I definitely do not want to say look the other way, but you know, we've coordinated with the property owner to establish a semi-maintained, semi-native lawn. Again, establishing some standards with them. And this is more of having a formal policy saying, if this is what you're looking to do, that's fine. The kind of the benefit of having an ordinance is criteria that they have to adhere to, and also being able to point to that criteria for a neighbor. So the neighbor, obviously people don't complain about their own lawns being too tall. It's usually a neighbor or a passerby, but most often a next door neighbor calling us and saying, this property's lawn is overgrown. Can you do something about it? If we have criteria and an application that shows this is the criteria they need to apply to, this is us showing them their intent to follow that criteria. And here's this registration form that they filed with us with that plan. And if they appear to be in violation, then we can give them a call. It also gives us their phone number and email so that if we do have an issue, we can just give them a call and say, hey, have you been mowing this part or something like that? Kind of going with that of just having something to go off of for anyone that's interested in doing this. Could only a few people take advantage of it? Yes. Could that number change as the years go on? You know, we had a pretty, I want to say a pretty dry summer, but people that care about their lawns usually have sprinklers at this point. I think there was a lot of irrigation permits this summer for lawns. So it's more of, if you're interested in it, you're able to do it. And we have this criteria that says you're allowed to do it.
I mean, what do the others think? I have no issue with the, you know, from that point of view, if you're putting some, you know, small rules like the few feet or the 2 feet on each side of the property line and registration, I have no problem going after it like that. What does the rest of the committee think? Do you want to, you want Garrett to kind of draft something that we could take a look at for next meeting?
Is there any risk in town council going the other direction and being like, hell no, we're not gonna have weedy yards, and just leaving it as is?
Yes. So if I can just speak for Shannon. So we can come up with some basic discussion points, and then I can discuss that with the town manager, and she can discuss it with town council, because that's the chain of command. Obviously, Johnny is on the town council, and he's the chair, so he can also report back to them on this discussion and kind of get their feeling about it. I don't know.
And I'm not meaning to laugh. I think it's I have enough of the council beat that I do think that it's fine as long as there's no public outcry. You know, if we don't get, I mean, and I say outcry, if we get 6 people to a meeting to complain, then that might be an issue, but I haven't seen 6 people at anything all year. So I just don't see that happening. And I think if this is, you know, brought up in the right manner, that people are using this as an excuse to get away with non-vegetation, and there is a little bit of a desire to do some of this, and here are the rules that it would set by, I don't see there being an issue getting this past the council.
Yeah, I think from that, if it can be, my hunch is that it's really a matter of making it clear that it's not promoting blighted properties, but it's allowing for the native plants. I think in the past, this ordinance was 2017-ish, I think is when the ordinance was passed, maybe. I don't remember for sure. In the intervening years, there's been a significant move towards more pollinator-friendly gardens. And when this first came up on the council, it was me saying, what about pollinator species? So, and there were some tweaks made to the original proposed language, but now I think it's even more, people are even more aware of it as an issue. So.
Right, so my understanding is that this ordinance was really adopted because we have a separate blighted buildings ordinance.
Mhm.
A building is only blighted if it's vacant.
Right.
So this added the ability to enforce properties that aren't being maintained as well. There's also accumulation of debris, so people that haven't been cleaning up their yards, and also the vegetation, shrubs and hedges and trees blocking the road, things like that. So that's about why it was created, so that we could kind of rein in those things that we technically hadn't been able, you know, we could kind of do it loosely of saying, hey, mow your lawn, clean up this debris. This just gave it, again, this gave it criteria, enforcement, and what needs to be done in order to comply with the ordinance.
Yeah, I think we can probably, I think it makes sense to maybe get some, I don't want you to spend time drafting something if town council has parameters that they're looking for. I think I'd like to hear what the council wants, so that way we're going in the right direction. But I think Kate's comment on setbacks makes sense. And something along the lines of naturalized areas. I know, for example, in my backyard, I've got 30 feet of a conservation. It's not considered a conservation easement, but it's an easement where I'm not allowed to do anything because it's an easement that benefits New Horizons, and it's trees and grass and shrubs, and I don't know what else is in there because I don't walk back there. So it's technically part of my lawn. So I think there's many other properties that would have similar scenarios. So having some sort of parameters about what would be acceptable and what wouldn't be. I wouldn't mind putting something in about native versus non-native species either.
Yeah, and I mean, on my reports, when I give the updates at the council meetings, I can bring this up. And, you know, we've got some pretty lax setback rules for sheds. I think it's 5 feet to a property line.
Mhm.
You know,
So-
maybe we mirror some of those same regs. Because if it's a shed, it could be within 5 feet. I don't see why you couldn't have tall grass within 5 feet. I mean, with those parameters, like you said, native species, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
I can bring it up, but it would be easier, Gary, and we can talk offline about, you know, structuring maybe the rules. And I could start to kind of get some feelers around before we start to draft actual language. Because I'm not the attorney, so I don't want to be pretending to be one either when it comes to this. So
And I am an attorney, and I have advised other towns on this, but I'm not the town's attorney. So
yeah,
Right, there you go.
You know,
exactly.
yeah.
So okay. Any other thoughts or final comments? Okay. All right, if there's nothing else, and I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Second,
Everybody, all right, no discussion on that. All right, all in favor?
I.
I.
All right, have a good night, everyone.
Thank you,
Good
everyone.
night. Thank you.
you.